Hello everyone and welcome to the class. This is David A. Cox and today we are talking all about iCloud. So if you have questions or if there's parts of iCloud that confuse you, this should hopefully answer all of them for you. Coming up, all about iCloud on PCClassesOnline.com. Hello everyone and welcome to the class. Today we are talking all about iCloud. This is a class I've taught in the past and things have changed so much with iCloud, for example by adding iCloud Drive and some of the other features like family sharing, where I decided we needed to update the class that we had taught about 11 months ago and factor in all of this new information. Also today, I'm going to be sharing with you several different tips and tricks to really maximize your use out of iCloud. Now, this class was actually taught live yesterday, and what happened was after the class was taught, I always leave time for questions from the audience, and for any of you out there who ever would like to attend our classes, they are free. You can find out everything on our website at PCClassesOnline.com. And during that segment where we open it up for questions, someone brought up a question that was so good that I figured I have to re-record this class. And so that's what I'm doing today. So I'm going to try to factor in that information and hopefully inform all of you. So I hope you enjoyed this class. If you don't mind leaving us your comments, your thoughts in the section below, we really do appreciate feedback. So let's get started here. First thing we're going to touch on very briefly is pricing. Please note, this class, as with all of our classes, is a snapshot in time. Today's date that this is being recorded is December 11th of 2014. So if the pricing has changed, I can't predict the future. Today's date, as of today's date, 20 gigabytes of iCloud storage you can get for $1. For 200 gigabytes, it costs $4. 500 gigabytes is $10, and 1 terabyte of data is $20. Now, one of the things I usually recommend to my clients is that they use more than one cloud service. For example, the two major competitors to iCloud are Dropbox and Google Drive. There's some pretty big differences between the two. For example, Dropbox gives you 2 gigabytes of data for free, whereas Google Drive gives you 15. With Google Drive, you can upgrade up to 30 terabytes. That's a lot of data. And with Dropbox, it's less than that. So there are different options, different configurations for different people based on what they do. But I'm going to show you one of them, which is, of course, iCloud Drive today, and also show you a few features to kind of configure it maybe in a way you didn't even think was possible. Let's get started. So to get access to iCloud Drive, you must be running a Mac that is running OS X Yosemite or on a Windows computer that has iCloud installed in it. And by the way, if you are running a PC and you don't have that yet, there will be a link in the description to where you can download that file, that program rather. So here you can see on my computer, I open up a Finder window, and here at the top left, we have iCloud Drive. And what I would like to do is share with you a little trick to use iCloud Drive as one of your forms of backup. If you've taken one of my classes in the past about either Time Machine, the Time Capsule, or just backup solutions for Mac and Windows, one of the things you may have heard me say before is that the best backup solution is to have your data in more than one location. Because after all, even if you're being as proactive as someone who's backing up through Time Machine, which is a way to do it on the Mac, if you have a fire or a flood, odds are it's going to destroy your computer and your backup. So by having a copy of your data that's in a different location, and the cloud does count as one of those locations, you get around that potential disaster. So what I want to do is give you a trick to replace your home folder with iCloud Drive. And what I'm about to show you may in fact actually be a bug that Apple didn't even realize existed. Let me give you an example. So if you look here on the left-hand side of my Finder window, we have shortcuts to my Documents folder and my Downloads folder, which are typically where people would put their documents and their downloads. And there's, of course, other folders that you don't see, like music and pictures and all those things. But the problem is that those are just located on my computer. Yes, I can still back them up with Time Machine, but there's no way to, you can't just drag the Documents folder into iCloud Drive. And the problem is, even if you do copy and paste the contents, it's still not going to automatically update unless you use one of the two tricks I'm about to show you. There are two different methods to replace your home folder with iCloud Drive. Let's go over the first one. So one of the things that I found to be very strange, and what I'm going to do is in iCloud Drive, I'm going to secondary click and create a new folder, and I'm going to call it iDocuments just so that it looks distinguishably different from my Documents folder. If I take a folder in iCloud Drive and attempt to add it as a shortcut, look what happens. It won't do it. It wants to put the folder in one of these locations, but it won't let me make it a location, okay? So how do we get around it? Well, some of you who remember way back to the OS 9 days may remember a little trick called creating an alias. And this, for whatever reason, works. So if I secondary click on a folder in iCloud Drive, one of the options is make an alias. And where people used to do this is they would put a folder on their desktop, and it's basically linked to a different location, but if they put files in it, it moves them to where they should be. Check this out. You cannot move a folder as a shortcut, but you can create a shortcut through an alias. So what I could theoretically do at this point is move my documents that are in Documents into iDocuments and then remove Documents as a shortcut. So what happens is what I'm left with is this shortcut here, which actually talks to iCloud Drive. And what's great is because iCloud Drive actually does store files locally as well as on the cloud, you don't have to worry. Even if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can still access everything in this folder. Pretty cool trick, huh? Now there is another trick I would like to show you, and some of you may prefer this as a different method. There's a little piece of software, we did a class on it a while back, called Hazel. And Hazel is basically a much more user-friendly version of Automator. It's a way you can tell the computer, if this happens, do this. Similar to the web service, if this, then that. So I want to show you a little trick here. Let's create an automated action so that every time I put data into my real Documents folder on the Mac, it automatically creates a copy of that document and puts it into iDocuments. Here's how you do it. If you've already downloaded Hazel, it's $29. You just open up the program, and here's how it works. You tell it what folder to work with. So in this case, I'll hit the plus symbol here at the bottom left, and I'm going to direct it. We're going to go to the home folder, and I'm going to direct it to my Documents folder. Okay? And now I'm going to create a rule by simply hitting the plus symbol over here towards the center of the screen. And so I'm going to call this auto copy to iCloud. And let's create the rule. So all I have to do is tell it if the file is really any file, which you can see is down here, any file that is in Documents, I can tell it to automatically copy that file into and direct it to iCloud Drive and iDocuments and hit OK. And that's it. So then it's going to automatically take anything that's in that folder and it's going to copy a version of it into iCloud Drive. It's a great trick to protect your files. A lot of businesses out there may want to use this for different types of folders on their servers. You know, if something happens with your server, if your server gets hacked, you still have a copy of it elsewhere in the cloud. So you can see right there, it's showing you that it's starting the process of moving documents. Okay, it's going through them. You know, it takes a while to do it, but it's going through it and it's starting to move those files over. That's the second little iCloud trick I thought I would show you there. The next thing I would like to talk about is I want to talk a little bit about photo sharing, and I'm going to kill Hazel from running right now, just because it's going to keep having these little files, these little alerts pop up. So let's, thank you, got it. Great. Okay, at least it proves that it's working, right? So now let's actually go into System Preferences, and we're going to go into iCloud and start to go through these items line by line. Now, please don't get the wrong impression. The email address that you are going to see appear on the screen is one that I use purely for demonstration purposes. Don't bother emailing it. I never ever check it, and everything basically just goes into trash. So we've talked a little bit here about iCloud Drive. Next thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about Photos. Now, this one I have a few little issues with. So if you have something like an iPad, and I happen to conveniently have one right next to me, and I will mirror it in 3, 2, 1. There we go. How's that for timing? I want to show you something here about iCloud and Photos. So let's go into Settings. Okay. So on the iPad, and again, this is as of today's date, under Photos, there's this option for iCloud Photo Library Beta. And as you might be able to guess by the fact that it's turned off on mine, that is what I'm recommending for everyone. Here's the thing. If you have already turned it on, do not turn it off, because that can be dangerous too. I have found iCloud Photo Library to be very unreliable. I've heard of people losing photos in the process. I don't trust it yet, and it surprises me that Apple would take a beta feature and make it available to everyone. And there's a reason why. Some of you who've taken my live classes have heard this. I don't do beta programs for this reason. Beta means not reliable. So if you haven't already turned this on, my recommendation is don't. Eventually what's going to happen is iPhoto and Aperture are going away, and they're being replaced with a different program called Photos, at least according to popular rumor. When that happens, of course, we will have a full class, and my guess is that this will no longer be in a beta phase, and at that point, I'll hopefully be able to recommend it. As of today's date, though, I can't. So what iCloud Photo does is it basically takes your photos, and if I upload a new photo, like let's say I have an iPhone, if I shoot a photo with my iPhone, it's going to automatically move a copy of that photo to my iPad, and in this case, if I click here, to my Mac. One strange feature, another oddity that I've found in iCloud, is just by turning this feature on, does not necessarily turn it on in iPhoto. Let's see if I can actually reenact this today. I was dealing with this yesterday during the live class, and I believe at that time I actually corrected it. So when you go into iPhoto, in order for this feature to work correctly, you have to go into Preferences for iPhoto, and from here go to iCloud and make sure this option is checked. Yesterday when I taught this class, it was checked in System Preferences, but for whatever reason, it was not checked in iPhoto. So if you want your photos to automatically go to your various devices, that is something you do need to check. Photo sharing that you see down here is another feature. It's going to interest some people and not others. But what it basically allows you to do is, let's say you're going on a family road trip and grandma and grandpa can't come along. So you go to the Grand Canyon, let's say. Everyone's got their iPhones, they're shooting photos. With Photo Stream, what you can do is you can create a shared photo stream so that when you take that photo, grandma and grandpa get a copy of it. It's kind of a cool feature, especially for trips. The one little word of warning is that make sure when you're done with it that you turn it off, because this has led, I'm sure, to several embarrassing situations and or breakups. So you've been warned. I'm going to quit so you don't see my iPad anymore. We may come back to that in a little bit. So if you want to create a shared photo stream from your computer, here's how easy it is. You just select the photos that you would like to share, go down to Share, iCloud, and you'll just click New Photo Stream. And at that point in time, it's going to ask you, who do you want to have access to this? You type in their Apple ID or their email address, and they'll get an invitation. By the way, that does also work with PC users. They just will be able to access those photos via the web as opposed to through iPhoto. So that's that. Next thing we're going to talk about here is the mail options in regards to iCloud. So let's get out of that. Okay, this part seems to confuse a few people. When you check this box, let's move this towards the center. When you check this box to enable iCloud for email, it means that you are creating a new email address, one that will end in @icloud.com. So let me give you an idea of how this works and why it is that I actually do tend to recommend this. There are two different types of email technology out there. One of them is referred to as POP, the other is referred to as IMAP. This is an example of IMAP. Other examples include Gmail, which I've recommended in the past. Also, there's a few others out there. For example, I was jokingly say AO Hell, and a few others as well. The difference, though, between POP and IMAP is this. Let's pretend that your email address is a POP account. Examples of POP accounts are pretty much every internet provider out there. For where I live, we have Comcast and Verizon. Others out there have Cox, and by the way, no relation. They have Cox, Time Warner, AT&T. There's a bunch of them that are out there. All of those, for the most part, that I'm aware of, all use POP. The difference is this. If I send an email to you and your email uses POP, it means that you are getting a copy of that email. And the problem with this is if you have more than one device, like let's say you have a computer, an iPhone, and an iPad, or an Android, and multiple devices, the problem is that nothing is going to sync. You're going to have to delete that message on every single device. Now, I get somewhere between 300 to 500 emails a day, so you can imagine which of these solutions I use. With IMAP, it all syncs. If you check the email and read it on one device, it will show as being read on the other devices. It's an automatic sync service. So if you have a different account, like something with POP, this may be a very good option as far as switching from one email service to the other. iCloud is one of the top two services I tend to recommend for email. The other is Gmail, although I do have some issues with Google and their privacy policy in regards to Gmail. For example, with Google, if you do use Gmail, you give Google permission to scan your messages for keywords, which can lead to ads that you see on your web browser. So that would be a downside. So this is where iCloud gets a slight bump up from Gmail. I do recommend it. I want to show you a trick at this point, something that I encounter all the time with my clients, and I'm going to show you this in regards to mail, contacts, and calendars. And it has to do with a major problem a lot of people tend to go through. So both email addresses you're about to see, I have to turn one of them on real quick. These are both fake accounts, so please don't get excited. I want to show you a trick here. So you see on my screen here two different accounts. We have one for Gmail and one for iCloud. For demonstration purposes, I want you to pretend that Gmail right here is actually a POP account. I know it's not, just play with me here for a moment. Okay, so that is a POP account and that's iCloud. One of the most common questions I get is how do I switch my email service from one to the other? There's a few different techniques, but here's the one that I found to be the best. The first thing you need to do is on your computer, not your iPhone, not your iPad, not any other device, you need to get it down to your real email. So if you go on your computer and you have 5,000 messages because you've been getting copies of everything, you need to get that version down to what really is your most important emails that you need to hold on to. Once you have that data, here's what you're going to do. On your computer, you're going to hit Command A. If you're trying to do this on a PC, it's Control A. That is select all. And what you're going to do is in one click, you're going to drag and drop all of these messages from one account and just drop them into the other account. And so by doing that, it means that all of your old emails are now going to be within iCloud. That also means that any device that is now talking to that iCloud account will now sync. So if you start to go through and sort them, it'll sync and sort on all of those other devices as well. Then I get the question in, very commonly, well, what happens if someone emails my old address? No one wants, to not be able to receive their legitimate messages. Here's the way you typically do it. Let's just use the example of where I live. We have Comcast as the major internet provider. With whatever provider you have, you would go to their website. So in this case, it would be Comcast.net and log into the webmail version. When you're logged into that service, pretty much every service out there has an options button where you can tell it to auto forward, so that if someone emails your old account, you can tell it to automatically forward that message to iCloud. There is usually a slight delay. It might be a minute or two, but there is a slight delay in doing this, but it ensures that you're not going to miss any messages. If you want to take it a step further, there is another trick too. So within the mail application, you can go into Preferences, go into Signatures, and create a brand new signature that says, please do not email my old account. My new email address is whatever it may be. And so what you can do is drag that signature into iCloud. And this is important. There's one more step you have to do. Once you've done that, you click on where it says iCloud and go down here to choose signature and select signature 1. And what that will do is people have emailed my old account, but now I'm responding from the new account. So then what happens is I hit reply, and automatically it includes this note on every single message. That's my little trick for switching over from one old email service to another. I hope that helps you. If it does, hey, leave me a comment in the section below. Next thing we're going to talk about is calendars, and this more than anything tends to screw people up, and I'm going to show you why. So here we have a dummy calendar, and a lot of you may have encountered this same problem, where if you look here on the left-hand side, we have calendars in multiple locations. This is especially a problem with Gmail, because Gmail does have their own calendars. And so what will happen is you may add an appointment in Gmail, not realize you're doing that, and then on your computer you don't have access to that calendar, and you wonder, well, wait, where did it go? What you need to do is get all of your calendars, and the same is true for contacts, in one location. And that's where iCloud is a perfect solution. Little footnote here, okay? If you have an Android device, you will want to instead synchronize your calendars and your contacts, and potentially also your notes, through Gmail as opposed to iCloud. Just a little note, because with Android products, you're pretty much force-fed into creating a Gmail account if you don't already have one. And Google will sync with a Mac and other products like an iPhone and an iPad. It just means that you're using that as opposed to iCloud for those particular services. So let's say you want to just get everything into iCloud. I want to show you how to do this. So the 3 dummy appointments that you see here, one from yesterday, one from today, and one for next Tuesday, these are all located in Gmail. I want to show you how to merge your calendars so that you can get them all in one online location, which is iCloud. So here we go. You're going to click on whatever calendar it is you want to export. We're going to go up here to File, go to Export, and we're going to do Export, first option. And you're going to notice it's going to give you the name of the calendar, and it's going to have the letters ICS at the very, very end. And what I would recommend doing is store this file temporarily on your desktop. It just makes it easy. Okay? Once you've done this, you can go into the Preferences for the calendar program and select that account and disable it by unchecking this box. Alternatively, you could actually hit the minus symbol here. So you'll notice now those appointments are gone, okay? And also it no longer says Gmail up here. So now to bring those into my iCloud calendar, all I have to do is go to File, Import. That file will be on the desktop. There it is. Hit Import, and it's going to ask me where do I want those events to go. So some of you may have a work calendar, a home calendar. Let's pretend those are all work events. Hit OK. If you see this kind of a screen, just hit Remove Unsafe Alerts, and voila, you have all of your calendars in one calendar, all listed under iCloud. Now the same thing that I just showed you is also true for Address Book. let me show you how that works. Now, what I'm going to do real quick here is, let me just kind of configure this. So let's go in. This is left the old way from back when I taught yesterday. I'm going to add a new contact. I'm going to make it my name. Okay, I'm just putting in fake information, obviously. Okay. My apologies to whoever's phone number that is actually, which it is, of course not, since that's way too many digits. Let's hit done. And I just need to move this into Gmail. Great. Okay. So some of you may have noticed that you come here into the contacts program, and it's the same deal, right? You've got iCloud, you've got Gmail, and you notice that you have some contacts that are on your computer that are not on your other devices. It's the same issue as the calendar. You need to merge everything together so that it's under one source. So let's go through how to do that. If I go here into Gmail, well, of course we only have one contact here. What we're going to do is click on All Gmail, File, Export, and use this first option, Export vCard. Save it to the desktop. And now go back into the preferences for contacts. Either disable the account or you can hit the subtract button, whatever's easier for you. And now we're going to go to File, Import. Locate that file and import it. I also would like to take a moment real briefly to show you another very common issue a lot of people have in going through and changing all of this information is that you can end up with duplicates like you see on my screen here. It has my name listed twice. There's a really fast way to change it. Just go up here to the very top where it says card, fourth item down, look for duplicates. Now the important thing to know about this is that if any of the data in the name is different, let's say for example, I usually use David A. Cox. If I left out my middle initial, it would see that as a different person and it's not going to merge that data. Okay, so now it merged all of my information, all of my fake information into one contact card. And that's it. But iCloud is really convenient for storing things like calendar appointments as well as contacts. Next thing we're going to do is I just want to give you a little trick about reminders. Some people use reminders, some people don't. Those who usually do tend to use this more on their iPhone than on other devices. Now, the way to trigger a reminder is you can use Siri. That's the easiest way I've found. On my iPhone, you hold down your home button, it activates Siri, and you can say, remind me whatever they may be. And what I tend to do as a trick, a lot of my reminders are location-based. And I noticed this yesterday that apparently you can only establish location-based reminders either from your computer or your iPhone. For whatever reason, I found I can't do it on my iPad. I can't tell if it's just a bad setting or if I'm doing something wrong. I say that as a full disclosure. So, for example, what I'll do on my phone is, let's say I have to remind myself when I get home to take the laundry out of the washing machine and put it in the dryer. The way you can phrase this to Siri is you can say, Siri, remind me when I get home to take the laundry out of the washing machine and put it in the dryer. Your iPhone, your iPad, and your computer all use GPS. So what will happen is when you get close to home, for me it usually happens a few steps before I walk in the door, you'll get a little ding, 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 and it will say, hey, remember to put the laundry in the dryer. That's a little bit about reminders. There are some other services out there. I can't remember if Gmail does it or not, but iCloud is certainly very convenient for this. That's a small portion of iCloud. The next thing I want to mention is what happens if you need access to files that you have in iCloud Drive, but you don't have your computer. Well, this is where iCloud Drive on the web can come in handy. So here I have just gone to iCloud.com on the web. I could do this on any Mac or PC. I did try doing it from my iPhone to see if I could access this file structure. It didn't work out so well. So I could go here into iCloud Drive, and you'll notice that the files that you'll see are the exact same ones once it updates, that are on my computer. In fact, I think a lot of these folders are actually empty. But if I go into iDocuments, I know that one is There's those 2 video files that it started to sync over. You'll also remember that a few minutes ago I stopped Hazel from syncing, so that's why it only shows 2 instead of the 3 that it actually did. The next feature that I would really like to share with all of you is the Find My iPhone feature. And please understand, despite the name, it actually is used for locating a Mac. It can locate an iPad, so it's really all of the various devices. Now, it's important to note that for this feature to work, you need to go, for example, I'll tell you how to do it on an iPad. You need to go into Settings on your iPad, and in the iCloud settings, you need to make sure that Find My iPad is turned on. Same thing for the phone, and on the Mac side, which I can show you real briefly. On the Mac side, you're going to go to System Preferences, iCloud, scroll down, and it's right here, Find My Mac. I have it turned off because this is not my real account. So let's go back here. So if you lose your device, and what better way could I demonstrate this than giving you a real life example? So back before PC Classes Online existed, I used to run an Apple Computers dealership. And one day I was working and a girl came into the store and she was just in a total panic. And she said, "Oh my God, can you help me? I think I left my phone on a bus." So I said, "Sure, no problem." So I cracked out my laptop, went to iCloud.com, just like you see here, clicked on Find My iPhone. I had her sign in, and there was this little dot. And the funny thing is that because it was on a bus, this dot was actually moving down the highway. So you can click on that little dot, and you can see information, which is what you see in this case up here. This is my iPad. And so from the control system here, you can play a sound on it if you need to get someone's attention. Also very handy for those of you who have a apartment or house that is maybe less than clean and just can't find your device. You can use this, click on it, and in a moment you'll hear it play on my iPad. So it makes a little pinging noise and it will play. You can also go into lost mode, at which point it'll kind of lock up the iPad, but it'll display a message telling the person who finds your iPad to call a phone number where you can be reached, and you have to enter in that phone number manually. Another option is you can remotely erase your iPad. Now, once you do this, there's no going back. So your ability to track it through Find My iPhone will be gone. Okay, this is last resort. You will also note another actually important feature. You can see the battery life. So if you are playing sounds on it and you know the battery is about to die and you suspect that someone may have stolen it, at that point, you're better off just hitting erase. You don't want someone getting into your personal information. So it's kind of, again, the last resort options. So folks, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about one of the most important tricks I can share with you, which has to do with communicating back and forth between iCloud Drive and other services like Dropbox from your iPhone or your iPad. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about family sharing and some of those services and wrap things up. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, folks. Now, this part here can get very, very confusing, so I'm going to try to take you through this as gently as possible. So we're once again on my iPad, and I'm going to try my best to demonstrate to you this problem. And this basically came up yesterday during the live classes where a gentleman was asking about saving files back and forth between different services. One of the things that I find frustrating about Pages is there is no file save as so that you can save your document in different locations. I did, however, find a way around this, and it's a little bit complicated. So before we even get there, let's go back just for a second to the settings for iCloud Drive so I can show you something here. Now, I was going through this, and I noticed that Dropbox shows up as one of the apps that can communicate with iCloud Drive. And I thought, how peculiar is that? Because after all, Dropbox is a competitor. Why would they both interact? And I later on figured out why that is. Part of it has to do with permissions and the ability to go back and forth between various apps that store files. The other thing you'll notice here is look at where Pages is in that list. It's by default set to on. And part of what this gentleman was frustrated by was that you can't, if you have that feature turned on, you cannot save a Pages document just to your iPad. You have to save it in iCloud if you have that feature turned on. And that is true, by the way. If you have this feature turned on, you have to save it to iCloud. But I did find a way to export a copy of it to Dropbox, which is, after all, in my opinion, one of the better ways to store actual files, since you can create folders and it's just easier. So let me show you how this all works. Let's go into Pages right now, and I have a little document here. And I find the wording about what I'm about to show you here very peculiar, because there is no export button. There's no save button. There is, however, a way around it. If you look at the top right corner of my iPad, we have that universal share button. And when you tap on it, look what you get here. You get share link via iCloud. Well, that's not what I want. You can send a copy, but that really isn't exactly what I want either. But look at that last option, open in another app. Here's the strange part. If you use open in another app, guess what is one of the options? Let's just do a Pages document to keep it consistent. Look at the very first option. It says open in Dropbox, but in this case, open actually means save. So I can tell it to store this document in Dropbox, and it's done. Just like that. So if I get out of that and I go back into Pages, yes, it is going to store a copy of that in iCloud Drive, but after all, I could always just hit edit and trash that document. Just hit select. I'm sorry, let's redo that. Hit edit rather at the top right, select that document, and then trash it. Trash can at the top left. And even though I've deleted it from iCloud, I still have a copy in Dropbox. I hope you were able to follow that. I know it's really confusing. Apple, why can't we have a Save As button? It would be so much easier. Sorry, that's that. Final little part we're going to talk about here is family sharing. Now, forgive me, I wish I could truly demo this. And if any employees at Apple should, ever come across any of our tutorial videos and acknowledge that we exist, we'd be more than happy to take a few extra iPhones or iPads or Macs or whatever you want to throw at us off your hands. Totally available to do that. Family sharing is a way that you can share purchases of some types of items with other members of your family. And by the way, technically speaking, no, they don't actually need to be related. That's just the word they use. So here's how family sharing works. You can have 6 people listed as family members. And so what it means is there's one person, presumably mom or dad, who are going to be the listed, sort of the gatekeepers, if you will. And they have the ability to allow anyone else listed under the family to share content. For example, let's say dad buys a brand new album of some sort of music piece. He can send it into all of the others' devices, just really, really simply. It does not work with certain items. Some apps will not allow sharing. Also, movie rentals do not work. Movie purchases do, movie rentals do not. But it has a few other features too that are really handy, like you can share photos. So let's use that example I used earlier where the family goes on family vacation to the Grand Canyon. Okay, everyone's got their little devices, their whatevers, and they're snapping their photos. By using family sharing, you can have everyone's photos go into one shared album. Another handy feature is you can share a calendar. So everyone has their own individual schedules, but they show up on one master calendar. So the kids can see what mom and dad are doing and vice versa. One other little thing I want to mention about family sharing. For those of you parents with young children and maybe have some concerns about them gaining access to either certain music or apps, one of the features within family sharing is the parents can make it so if the kids want to purchase any of that stuff, it sends an authorization request to whoever is the account holder for them to authorize. So if little Jimmy wants to listen to the new Marilyn Manson CD, dad can say, not so much. Or mom, for that matter. So that's a little bit about family sharing. It is a great feature for the people who need it. One of the features I was surprised to find about this, you cannot find this information on Apple's website. It doesn't mention anything about pricing. So I had to get on the phone with Apple and call them and climb the ladder to get this information. So let's use that example where Dad purchases a music album. I would think, at least based on what I've known about Apple, that if one person purchases an album and sends it to others, the others end up paying for it somehow as well. Believe it or not, that's actually not the case. You only pay for it once, and then everyone else gets it for free. Don't know why, but hey, that's great. We all love to win every now and then, right? So I hope you've enjoyed this class. iCloud is one of the most difficult topics for me to ever teach because there are so many different ways that you could possibly configure this, especially when you throw an Android into the whole scheme of things. As I mentioned earlier, if you have a Droid, you may want to consider syncing specific items like calendars and contacts not through iCloud because of the fact that iCloud doesn't sync with a Droid. However, Gmail kind of gives you a workaround with that. Please also, I want to say this before we go, I do read your comments. I can't respond because there are only 24 hours available in a day and I have another job, but I do read your comments, so please give us some feedback. Let us know if you like this class. It helps us for creating future classes, and after all, knowing what you can do better is always really helpful information as well. So thank you for taking your time to watch this. Please check out our website if you've not done so, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free, folks, and that way you're notified whenever we come out with new content. This is David A. Cox with PC Classes Online. Class dismissed.